All right, we're going to start the June 16th meeting. First, we'll have the, you want me to read the first part? Yep. All interested parties are invited to be heard during the public comments and public hearing portion of the meeting. Due to the current state of emergency recording COVID-19, City Hall is closed to the public. However, the city requests the public to call or email comments and or questions to 407-554-7118 or citizens@ocoee.org. The invocation will be had by Reverend Raspberry. We're going to call him on the phone, and then we'll have the Pledge of Allegiance and then the roll call. Please stand.
Okay, Mr. Raspberry, we're ready.
Let's pray. Father God, we thank you for this great opportunity to come before your people to do the business of the city of Ocoee. God, we ask that you just be with us and guide us through this evening's meetings, and let us be a representative of you and help us to come together during these trying times to be a beacon of light in this great city of Ocoee. Help us to set the standard for the state and even the nation on how to work together and how to move people and the country forward through the things that we administer and the things that we do. God, we just ask that you just be with us as we try to feed the citizens of Ocoee and try to clothe those that may even be naked. God, even during this time, we just ask that you give us strength, God, for the journey. We ask, Lord, you give us wisdom and insight that only comes from you. But help us to keep you first in what we're doing and to collaborate together with ideas and insight that can only come from you, even during these trying times. We ask that you just bless those that may be sick, bless those that may be in the hospital right now dealing with COVID-19. And God, we just thank you in advance for unity, even on this commission right now. We just ask and just bless your name for what you're about to do, even during this season. In Jesus' name we do pray. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. All right, we have a,
Mayor,
go ahead.
Sorry. Commissioner Brinson.
Present.
Commissioner Wilson.
here.
Mayor Johnson.
Here.
Commissioner Furster.
Here.
Commissioner Oliver.
Here.
We have a special guest tonight that wants to give a little talk. That's our representative, Geraldine Tom. Come right on up.
Thank you, Mayor Johnson and Commissioners, for the opportunity to speak briefly about a commemoration that will occur this Friday, June 19th. And June 19th commemorates the end of slavery in America. And sometimes we don't really embrace all of our history in terms of who we are. A number of years ago, my husband and I traveled to South Africa. And one of the places we visited was the Apartheid Museum in South Africa. And when you pay your admission, you're given a ticket, and the tickets are randomly stamped. I looked at my ticket and it said non-white. My husband's ticket says white. So I'm thinking, okay, I have been non-white for a long time. I know how to do that. Not a problem. But when we go to enter the Apartheid Museum, they look at my ticket and say, you'll have to go around the side to enter. And because you have a white ticket, you can go right in. I share that with you because this is a country that moved from that system to a time when Nelson Mandela was president of South Africa. So we have to acknowledge all of our history, where we've been, where we are, and where we want to go. And so Juneteenth is one form of acknowledging our history when Florida was part of the Confederate States of America. And there was an Emancipation Proclamation signed by President Abraham Lincoln. That was in 1863. Just because he signed it did not mean that people were free. We know we had a civil war in America that started in 1861 and ended in 1865. And one of the things that the war was about was whether one group of human beings would be allowed to own another group of human beings. That war ended in April of 1865. And President Lincoln sent Union soldiers on horseback, riding throughout the country, reading the Emancipation Proclamation. And I'd like you to think about a time when you didn't have your cell phone, you didn't have a fax machine, you didn't have television, radio. So how were you going to get the news? So these soldiers rode and they stopped in different places and they read the Emancipation Proclamation. The Union soldiers came to Florida on May 20th of 1865, and they read the Emancipation Proclamation on the steps of the Knott House in Tallahassee. So the news of freedom came to Florida in May, but the soldiers had other places to go, and they continued their journey and ended up in Galveston, Texas. They reached Galveston, Texas on June 19th, 1865. And over the years, June 19th has been contracted, and it's simply known as Juneteenth. And it is a celebration of freedom that started in Texas, because you can imagine once you learn that you're free and you're emancipated and you're independent, you celebrate. And so it started in 1865 and it continues today. So this June 19th, I am here to ask for your support, your partnership in hosting what I'm calling a Juneteenth Justice Rally. And this will be a partnership between my office, Florida House of Representatives District 44, and the city of Ocoee. None of us can ignore the civil unrest that's occurring in our country and in our state today. So the Juneteenth Rally for Justice is going to address the civil unrest, the journey that we're all on. And I know through your proclamation regarding July Perry, my work to get a road designated to recognize July Perry, we're all moving in a direction to achieve a goal that we want to achieve. And I think it's cause for recognition and it's cause for celebration. And so I'm asking for your partnership with our activities for Juneteenth. The civil unrest that we're seeing has to do with instances of excessive force, and we're not going to put our heads in the sand and pretend that it's not happening. So we've invited the sheriff of Orange County to participate in Juneteenth to talk about policies that are in place in Orange County that would prevent what happened in Minnesota from happening in Florida. You all are likely aware that the officer who knelt on George Floyd's neck for almost 9 minutes has a second home here in this district, in House District 44, which is the district that I represent. And when that became public, there were protests in front of the home, there were demonstrations, and I certainly said to people, you have the right to voice your opinion, you have the right to peacefully assemble, but it should be peaceful and you should do no harm in terms of this particular dwelling. And so that was the way that it was. And once the officer was arrested and the other 3 individuals were arrested and charged, the protests have gone away. But unfortunately, we're now looking at yet another instance. So we're talking to the sheriff. We've invited him to come. And what I want to do when I return to Tallahassee, rather than piecemeal and patchwork, I want to see what policies exist throughout the state of Florida. And if they don't exist, what can we put in place to make sure that we don't have this kind of problem? Certainly outlawing chokeholds. I want a database that would be administered through the Florida Department of Law Enforcement that would allow us to identify by county, by department, and by individual instances where there are complaints regarding excessive force. The officer in Minnesota had, I think, at least 15 complaints of excessive force. And if you had a database, that would be an opportunity to see a red flag, to say we need training, we need counseling, perhaps we need suspension, perhaps this is a person who needs to be decertified because he doesn't have the personality or the attitude to be effective in this job. So we want that kind of input, because I think we don't want to just have people assemble and to voice their discontent, but what can we do about it moving forward is the question. I've invited our county mayor to join us here. I've invited members of the faith community who will address their view that racism is pride and pride is sin. And what is the responsibility of the faith community to address this? Another person who will speak is also a member of our community here in District 44, William Floyd, a former NFL player, who will talk about taking a knee and the recent position of the NFL with regard to that. So it's going to be a very broad gathering of people. We have young people who are energized, they want to be involved, and they are the people who are going to be the future leaders. So we want to hear from them in terms of the direction that we're going to take. So my purpose in being here tonight is to ask for your support and your partnership of the Juneteenth Justice Rally on June 19th at Bill Breeze Park in the Sunrise City of Ocoee. And if you have questions, I'll be glad to answer those.
I talked to you the other day, and I appreciate it, getting with you and talking about it and letting us know. You sent out the list of the speech, who's giving talks and that stuff. We got
Yes, sir.
that. So, is there a time limit?
3 minutes.
3 minutes?
Mm-hmm. And we certainly want you to speak to the gathering and invite and welcome people to
Yes, ma'am.
your city.
Yeah, we'll be glad to. I also, just real quick on another issue, I let everybody know ahead of time, and I talked to you on the phone the other night and asked you about the Music Fest, about doing that part of our deal for July Perry on the Music Fest that night on Saturday for doing a thing, and you said you would do it for us. So I just want to make sure everybody knows that you're volunteering and participating in that.
Oh, absolutely.
So,
I've come to your events in the past and been your guest at
Yes,
the
ma'am.
VIP tent and had a great time. And as I said, I am not a revisionist when it comes to history. I think we have to look at the good, the bad, and the
Yes,
ugly,
ma'am.
and the path that we're on and where we want to go and how to get there. And so, yes, when you and I talked, I did agree.
I appreciate it very much.
Mm-hmm.
But we're glad you came tonight. Get to go home and get on the phone now, right?
Yes, I have a Zoom call.
I have a question. As
Yes,
well.
sir.
Based on partnering with the city, what can we do? What you need from the city? And when I say this, I'm thinking by way of maybe like a porta potty or some trash cans, so that way once the event's over, there's not a lot to clean up. So what can we do as far as logistics to help out with this event?
Well, we're certainly going to need assistance with managing the crowd and getting people in and out and making sure that we leave the park in the same way that we found it. So yes, trash cans, and that people have access to comfort stations when they need them. So that all of that will be needed. The county, I'm getting a mobile stage that the county has, so I'll have the stage, and I'm working now on a sound system amplification for the speakers and other things.
I see, we have the Director of Parks and Recs here, so is there any way that we may be able to get them two together to figure out what would be needed for the park for if this is something that we want to do as a commission?
Yes.
Mark. Mark, up at the podium. So.
Kia is
Mr. Johnson.
my legislative aide. And
Mr.
so she
Johnson.
has been.
Yeah, come on.
If you ask me, it's put your mask
You have to
on.
make sure it's recorded, son.
So Kia, your assistant, has been
Yes.
emailing us, and we just told her once this gets approved tonight and everything logistically wise, we would get with her tomorrow, call, and update. And there's, like the rest, like you said, the restrooms, trash cans, traffic control, that kind of stuff.
We need an amount of money for the Porta Johns.
I don't know if Mark has money in his budget, or if we need to
Okay.
take something out of contingency. You still have about $10,500 in
Yeah.
contingency this year, Mayor.
I was gonna say just have $500 out of contingency to handle the Porta Johns, and
Does that do it, Mark?
Good enough?
Okay.
I think you're gonna need about 4 probably. I'd put 4.
I'd say at least 4. 4 is probably a
Yeah.
good number at least.
Do you have a number? Do you have like an?
I unfortunately, with this kind of gathering, it's very difficult. I did ask people to register, whether they will or not, I don't know. But I wanted
If-
them to register, so I had some sense of how many people we would be expecting.
I tell you what, I think with Jim's local, if we get a hold of him and they tell we want 4, and if it happens to be more, we can call him, I think, on a quick call and get him more out.
You should be able to do that,
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, I'll get with the potty company, and then we'll get that enough, make sure we're
If
covered.
we need the money, then he can tell us. If not,
So-
we can take it out of it.
So what we would need, Mayor, couple of things. Consensus to be a co-sponsor and
Yeah.
let them have the field, that's one. Number 2, authorization to close the roadways if we need
Yeah,
to,
we
because
have to
that's
close
something
them,
that the
yeah.
commission has the exclusive right to do. And third would be the transfer of the $500 from contingency to whatever the account number in Parks and Rec that we need to move that to.
Um,
And I do expect a lot of media to be, we send out press releases all over.
All right, we need a consensus for closing the road.
Rob,
We
what
need to vote
about
on
police?
that. Huh?
What about police?
And,
And-
yeah, that's something
Is
too.
the police here? Is
Charlie is here somewhere. He said he would be here, so I know. Chief Brown,
We're
you in the
gonna
building?
get everything, we'll get all that fixed for you. I know you got another call coming, so we'll make
There
sure.
he is.
Mark can get a hold of your representative too.
What was the, do you have a question? I think we're prepared to deal with the situation. We may need a little bit of overtime. If you can put some money from contingency, we'll use it if we have to, but I don't know how
So
to.
Mayor, with what you still have in contingency, maybe $500 in overtime to the police department too?
Yeah.
Yeah, same thing.
It looks
Yeah.
like we're only gonna have to use a couple of officers because it is a Friday and we have
Yeah.
some SROs that will be there and some CID people are working that day, so we shouldn't need that much, but just in case.
Thank
Okay?
you.
What,
All
1,000
right,
total?
Mark, you gonna have any of your staff there?
1,000 total?
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
anything else is going to come out of the personnel budgets or.
We'll
I
need to
mean, I
make
think-
sure they don't drive on the rails and stuff.
No driving the rest.
Tomorrow I'll get with PD.
Okay,
and-
all right.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll put aside $1,000 Rob out of contingency.
Yeah, $1,000 on contingency to Parks and Rec and the
All right.
police department. And I think if you do one motion, Mayor, to encompass all those
Rosemary-
things, that'd
Commissioner
probably
Wilson,
be
I'm sorry.
fine.
Commissioner Wilson made a motion for
Rosemary's just fine.
$1,000 out of contingency to cover the police and the
Close the streets.
Porta Johns. Do I hear a second?
I'll second it.
Seconded by Commissioner Oliver?
Are we putting them all together or not?
Put them all
Yeah.
together.
Yeah,
Okay, so it was $1,000,
yeah.
the road closure, the park, police.
Yeah. Do I hear, I have the second. Any more comments? Let's vote. Aye.
Okay.
Motion carries.
All right, thank you so much.
Thank you.
I want to push that button.
All right. Let's see.
Yeah.
Presentation of park accomplishments in 2020. Parks and Recreation Director Johnson. I think you won't have to take that down below you.
Yeah.
I had a hard time ordering a hamburger the other day. Lady couldn't talk through the mask.
Good evening, Mayor, Commissioners, City Manager. I'm here tonight to just give you a little update on some things we've been doing from the Parks Department. And, you know, improving the parks. I think I've been in this position almost 2 years now, and when I took over, I wanted to really put emphasis on trying to improve our parks because, you know, people want to move to your city because they enjoy your park system. And so a couple of these slides are going to be some improvements we have done throughout the city. I'm trying to make sure we include the whole city, so I move district to district, that kind of thing, each year. And at the end, we're going to give you a little update on a new addition to one of our parks. So we'll start with the first slide would be at the beach center. We have you can see the before and after on our play features. You can call them, I guess you call water features. We replaced our umbrella, and the middle section of our pool was really, actually the old one was really difficult to see around, so we put something smaller and you can see through it kind of thing for safety reasons. Palm Drive Park playground, that playground really needed to be removed and the new one put in. We took the old one out. We actually designated a new area for the new one. It's a little more shaded, as you can see in the pictures. Just dressed it up a little bit. Parkside Coventry, we replaced the playground there, same thing. That old playground needed to be replaced, so we replaced it with a newer, better version. We also, in that same park, we took the old tennis court out. You can see how kind of shape that was in. And that's that's recent, that's put in the last 3 months we've improved that tennis court. Vinetti Park, where the new fire station is temporarily, we've improved the driveway in. As you can tell, the old one was really, really rough, but it actually, Public Works actually helped us out with that, has some money left over, and got that asphalted for us. As far as the park itself, we're really getting a lot of requests for our fields. We can't keep up with the requests that we get because we have some of the best playing fields, you can say, for youth sports. And that picture before doesn't do it justice how bad that park was, what kind of shape it was in. And we really emphasized, you know, making the park accommodable for our youth. And we've redone the concession stand there too, so now we can run a full youth organization, baseball, softball night there with relative ease. We've also started improving our basketball court, so we've resurfaced Vinetti. You can see the left, you can't even see the lines hardly, but we replaced them with a new paint, that kind of stuff, lined it. Because this park and the next slide, Central, get a lot of use. Central Park sometimes you'll see 60 people down there waiting to play basketball. So they were so excited to use our court, they got in there when the paint was wet. So we had to tell them to stop, and we had to do it again the next day, tell them to try to hold them off. But next thing we're going to do is take those goals out and get new goals this year. Cemetery, which it needs some definite upgrades. We took the fence out. That's along the eastern side. We put the new black vinyl coated fencing in there. It just changes the whole look when you have that kind of fencing. And I am now going to turn this over to Ginger Corliss, who's going to go over the new Montgomery Park improvements. Thank you.
Okay. Montgomery Park is a 4.5-acre neighborhood park. It's kind of located south of Orlando, between Montgomery and California with that. So we first started taking a look at how we can come up with an improvement plan for Montgomery Park. We went back to take a look at what we recently heard from our community, from our online survey that we had. And just to share a little bit, throughout the entire city, when you talk about a system, the community really said, here's the kind of the things that we want to have. First, improve the existing parks we have before we go out and buy new ones and improve those. Second, more playgrounds, dog parks, and more trails. Those were kind of the three top amenities when we were asked, what do you want to add to the system? We asked the question about Montgomery Park, playground, continue with a walking path, seating and water fountains, but this was the top response. Just add anything to get people to use it. And I thought that was an interesting thing because living down from Montgomery Park has kind of seen more people the past few months utilizing, including a whole yoga community that's now using the green with us, which is kind of interesting. But we also did an intensive field assessment, and while we were out there, we had several of the neighbors come up and say, what are you doing? And we were talking to them. And they really did mimic when they started talking about what they would like to see for their neighborhood park, what we'd heard on the community survey. We also went back and took a look at existing plans that had been done previously, even so for those that had done the improvements that we put in through the FERDAP grant several years ago with that. So we kind of took all this assessment and started to develop an improvement park plan. This is actually a new site plan that we're going to move forward. See if I can get my cursor to move. You know, it's really bad when you have to put your glasses on to see everything. Okay, here we go. Montgomery Park, right here is Montgomery Avenue. This is the existing parking lot and the existing walkway that continues around underneath the trees and connects over to California, and the existing pavilion, existing field area. So those are all staying, and what we really want to do is kind of grow on that foundation that we have. We're proposing to add and connect come here, cursor. Well, actually connect the perimeter pathway. So we have a perimeter path that kind of goes up to the north side, connects back around, comes on the south side, and that will actually give you a quarter-mile loop to go around the park. 4 times you've done your mile. But we can actually put in some of the information so people can work on their fitness program and continue with healthy communities that we've talked about. We're also recommending that we add a playground area, which will be underneath the existing tree canopy, and to the west, a dog park, which will kind of blow up the second and some improvements onto California. And looking at the dog park, this will be kind of close to California, but we are recommending that we're going to go in and clean up the area. Right now, it has a lot of invasive, exotic materials, so we're going to go clean it up with our park crews and keeping the oak canopy that's out there. We're going to maintain a 25-foot buffer between California and the dog park. The size of the entire area that you see in black kind of outline is about 0.64 acres. When you're taking a look at designing dog parks, you need at least a half an acre of property to be able to provide the space and the opportunities for dogs to be off leash and run, and also have the social atmosphere for us humans with that. So we're going to close it with a black vinyl fence. To the south area, we're going to have a double gate entry. Let's see if I can get this cursor work. Anyway, it's to the south, and it's basically, when we talk about a double gate, we actually will enter, we'll have a decompression area, so where you take your dogs off leash, and then they can entry into the dog park. We're having and showing a walkway and a shaded pavilion in the dog park area, and in the little round area is what we're calling a spray mister, which we'll show you in a second with that. But we'll also have benches that are going to be periodic, kind of placed throughout the area, and they will also be on concrete slabs. The benches that we're going to be using here, as well as the playground, as well as the trash receptacles, will be reused from where we had them in the Lakeshore Center. So we're going to be cleaning them up, doing a little bit of a paint job, and reutilizing our materials so they can kind of really leverage the dollars that we do have to improve the area with that. We also are going to take a look at adding some dog agility course areas. Along the perimeter improvements, we are recommending that there's a new entire perimeter fence around the entire park. Right now, we have chain link fence that's kind of falling apart in areas. We're looking to put a new black vinyl coated fence out there. As well as along California, we have the right of way to put 3 parking spaces that are basically parallel spaces to the road to provide an opportunity to do some improvements into the entry with signage and other elements at that point in California with that. Oops. I always do that. The dog amenities, of course, will have a water fountain in the dog park area, including with a dog bowl. We'll also have hose bibs so we can do our cleaning. We'll be placing, of course, our waste facilities in there from the standpoint of our waste stations. And this is the little hydrant spray area that we're going to have on a concrete pad and have drainage to it. This is a mister that provides a little bit of cool relief. and a little bit of element within the dog park. We are adding agility pieces. We do have some pieces that a few of the pieces here that we're looking at. So it provides, again, a place for dogs to play and also for us to work with them to work on their skills. The playground area, we're looking at 3 kind of play areas. They'll be underneath the trees. And we're actually positioning the playground closer to California, where we'll have the most walk-in traffic for the playgrounds, because some of the other neighborhoods have their own internal playgrounds with HOAs. The neighborhoods really to the west and a little bit to the north do not have that amenity with it. So what we're looking to do is kind of move those entrances away from the dog park entrance, and we're going to be separating them by 12 feet from the walkway to making sure there's a landscape buffer with trees before you get to the dog park. But we're going to have swings, teeter-totters, and a play apparatus. Of course, the water fountain will be also provided in that area, and it's adjacent to the existing playground. We really think when it comes to the implementation of the park improvements that we're going to be able to do a lot with our own in-house personnel to really stretch the money in the existing budget that Mark has to be able to put the improvements in. So we're going to concentrate on the dog park and the playground. We are going to have to get a water line to the area. Projects that perhaps the perimeter walk, we can't afford it this year, we'll have to move into the next capital year, but we're going to try to get going this summer. So I'm going to open up for questions for Mark or I.
I think it's a great, got some great stuff out there. All the parks are looking good. I know the ball fields up on the, where they redid them at Vignetti really look sharp, and that whole park out there is looking good. I think the last thing in Vignetti is that fence up front, right, Mark? Yeah, that place has really changed. It looks good.
I've received several calls about Coventry Park. The residents over there, they are just really happy with what's been done in that park. And I think the kids are out there more, and they're taking a lot of pride in that, because a lot of the residents have been there for a long time, so they know what it looked like before, and they saw it when it was run down, and now the improvements, they're really, really happy with that. So great job out there at Coventry Park.
I'm just going to say I'm real excited, of course, Montgomery Park, and a lot of folks in the community, not just in District 2, in that community, have wanted a dog park in the area. But this, again, being a community venture, and I feel a lot of our neighbors who live in the adjoining properties will be so thrilled to have that dog park, because it is an opportunity for them to walk from their home and get to the park. So again, healthy exercise and healthy exercise for our pets. So thank you so much. I'm thrilled with this.
Thank you very much. Great job. Next is the presentation of on the CIP board bond issue procedures. Finance Director Roberts.
Okay, good evening, everyone. It's good to be here again. I believe that Mr. Mark Galvin is joining us by phone. We'll give just a second. Okay. So we're here to talk about the process that we will go through in order to issue the 2020 capital improvement completion bonds for the new City Hall. As an overview, we remember that in 2017, we issued capital improvement bonds to finance, in part, the new City Hall, along with some other projects that were done or in some form of completion or have been started within the city. We will need an additional $13 million in order to complete the City Hall, so we're going to go back out for another bond issuance. The city's financial advisor, Mark Galvin, particularly Hilltop Securities, who have been working with us for many years, has recommended that the city issue completion bonds on parity with the 2017 bonds. That means that they will be of equal lien status with the existing bond. The Series 2020 bonds will be paid out of the legally available general fund non-ad valorem revenues. Estimated debt service on the new bond is $815,000, amortized over 20 years. It is expected to take about 90 days to go through the bond issuance process, and we anticipate that interest rates will remain low and could possibly go lower. We will be issuing the bond through a negotiated sales basis. We'll be engaging with the same financing team that we used for the 2016 and the 2017 bonds. This is good for us because the team is familiar with the city. They're also familiar with the project that they will be funding. A negotiated sale gives us the flexibility to quickly enter the market, which means we will have the opportunity, should prices drop, that we can enter quickly and capitalize on any price drops. Our financial advisor, as I mentioned, is Mark Galvin with Hilltop Securities. Our bond counsel is BMO, Bryant Miller Olive, and our underwriter is RBC. Both BMO and RBC are very highly respected in the industry. The process will be engage the team. That's the first step, and Mark and I have been in discussions to do so already, so we'll be doing that following this meeting. The team will prepare a proposal, and then we will come back before the commission once again for you all to approve that proposal. So nothing moves until you have had the opportunity to review it and to approve it. Once you have done that, we will complete the financing. That is the process in a nutshell, and I am happy to answer any questions, and Mr. Galvin is also on the line if we have any questions for him.
Is Mark on there? Yes. All right. Any of the commissioners have anything, comments?
Yes, I am. This is Mark Galvin.
Hey, Mark. All right, commissioners.
The only question I have is, would the bond be issued all at once we get through the actual 90-day period?
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you.
I'm just asking, would the bond be issued all at once we get through the 90-day period, or would there be a draw based on when we need certain parts of it as we start to vertically construct the new city hall building?
No, actually, the idea, because interest rates are so low, you'd want to take advantage of locking in the interest rate. If you did a drawdown line, you'd have to wait until after everything had been already completed before you could lock the interest rates up. And actually, that would take two financings. One would be the line of credit would end up being really a bank loan, and then you take the bank loan after the bond issue. We find that, one, the additional cost of issuance to do that and the interest rate risk really wouldn't be that cost effective.
So basically, it'll be one check that will be cut, so there won't be any draws, just to take advantage of the low interest rates.
That's right. You're going to go ahead, we'll issue all the bonds, and you'll have all the funds, $13 million, set into account where the city will invest those funds.
And we are investing.
All right, anybody else? All right.
Excuse me?
That was, finance director said something, Mark. What did you say? Nothing.
It's fine. It's fine.
All right, Mark, I think we got it covered. We need to vote on it, right?
And we look forward to working with you again.
Thank you. Do we have to do, Scott, we need any motion or anything on this?
Approval of anything?
No.
I think the purpose of doing this
Just-
tonight, we had talked about the bond, we haven't brought anything before
Yeah.
you officially. As long as there's a consensus, we're going to start doing the paperwork, start getting the bond counsel and everybody ready. And if you had any issues with us moving forward at this point, we wanted to talk about them now. Otherwise, a consensus to go ahead and start moving as the presentation outlined.
Well, the only question I got is, are they gonna start digging dirt in July or August? We're behind.
Could be.
Hello. Huh?
Yeah, I'm not prepared to answer that question.
Jamie's
I
not
don't
here,
know
is
yet.
she?
No. she's
Well, I was
not.
told into July or something like that, around the 1st of August, so. Haven't they been working on the contracts and stuff for the bids on the job? I think so. All right, somebody get us an answer for that. All right, thank you.
So there's a consensus?
Consensus, everybody's consensus?
To start moving forward on the
good?
bond issue.
Yeah. Everybody's good?
Thank you.
Good.
All right, staff reports.
All right, I have two issues this evening, Mayor. You have a replacement, item number 6 on the agenda. And basically, the difference on here, we were expecting the contract from the MoneyGram folks to be here so we could give a copy of it to you this evening, but it didn't get here in time. We do know what the costs are going to be to allow people to pay their utility bills using MoneyGram. We just don't have the contract. So in order to not put it off for another month and be able to offer this service to our residents instead of, with the limited entry into City Hall and everything, we'd ask for your approval tonight, and when the contract does come in, as long as it meets the requirements of the fees that have been enumerated on here, if the city attorney and I look at the contract and agree, you approve that based on us telling the mayor that it's okay to go ahead. It fits the
All right, anybody have any
basic
comments on that?
tenets of what we had talked about.
We just need consensus on
Yeah,
that?
we just didn't get the contract in time. We don't want to put it off to the next meeting a month from now, so we just want to offer that service now at this time.
Well, we need to vote on it, Scott?
Yeah, let's vote on it.
I don't have a problem with it. I mean,
Yeah, I'd like to make that motion once the contract comes in for MoneyGram, as long as the fee is $1.50 per transaction and online service is 2.95%, then I'll make that motion that we approve.
motion made by Commissioner Brunson. Do I hear a second?
I'll second.
Seconded by Commissioner Wilson. Any more comments? No more comments? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
One other issue, Mayor, we have an emergency item before you, and you may remember this. We just passed this 2 weeks ago, and it's the contingency sale for sanitation vehicles. You do have 2 other issues on tonight's agenda, disposing of another round of sanitation vehicles. This one that you approved 2 weeks ago, we actually brought it forth to you, and they had approved the agreement and signed it and sent it back to us. However, their idea of what contingency sale means and ours were a bit different. So the old agreement, they had stated to us they anticipated to get these amounts that you see in front of you on the vehicles, and then they would take a 5% commission. However, they want to take some of their own dollars and upgrade the vehicles and possibly try to sell them for more, which I understand, and they want to guarantee us these prices here and not charge us a 5% commission. So that's the difference, basically. Steve's here. He's dealt with the company that's putting these on contingent sale. So if you have other questions, basically the way this is written right now, it'll save the city some, I think, $26,000. But it was basically a misunderstanding of what they thought their duty was to sell these on contingency and what our thoughts were when we went forth with them.
It looks like we make more money, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's always a guess. A lot of times, the way it was written before, those weren't hard and fast numbers. So if someone came in and wanted to sell it to buy that first one for $100,000 and they accepted it, it would have been sold for $100,000. This way, they're guaranteeing us those numbers.
Yeah.
We know we're going to get that amount. We won't get it until they actually sell the unit, but that's what we know we're going to be getting. And this also saves us the 5% commission.
All right.
And Steve, if I have said anything wrong, nod or, okay.
All right, any more comments on it?
I have a question. Are we talking about the emergency item as well as?
This is just for the emergency item. The other 2 you deal with through the consent agenda tonight. Yeah.
All right, anybody else? All right, I need a motion.
I'll make that motion to approve.
I'll second it.
Motion made by Commissioner Wilson, seconded by Commissioner Oliver for the emergency item consignment agreement on the sanitation trucks. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? All right,
Thank you. I have nothing else, Mayor.
all right. Commissioners' announcements. Commissioner Brinson.
None at this time.
Commissioner Oliver.
I actually have 2 items that I want to go over tonight. The first item I need to talk about is Attorney's Day. The Attorney Day, for those that are watching, what Attorney Day is, it is 2 days that we have a month that the city commissioners and the mayor has to sit down with the city attorney, which you know, we pay tax dollars to have counsel when it comes to all things legal. And we have these days with him to be able to talk about these things. However, one of the things we don't have is there's no mechanisms in place to determine how we go about doing it. As we know, we're bound by sunshine laws, so you can't have two commissioners meet with the city attorney at one time. So therefore, I was told when I first got elected that I have to send a memo or email or make a phone call to let the executive assistant know that I want to attend Attorney's Day, provided that no one else had already asked for that day prior to me asking. So recently, I called. I needed some legal advice about a few things that had come before me, before a few citizens had asked about them. And I was told that those days were blocked off because someone had actually blocked all the days off moving forward. So therefore, I have to figure out a way to talk to the city attorney, either make a phone call or whatever. I feel that we need to have some type of mechanism in place that is designed for us to be able to sit down with the city attorney. Maybe, I know there's about an hour that we have with him during that time frame. If we needed 15 minutes apiece or some type of amicable process need to be put in place that we're able to take advantage of that time for meeting with the city attorney for Attorney Day. So I'm bringing that forward to the commission because I need to figure out how can we come up with some type of mechanism that we are able to utilize that time wisely. Again, if the mayor shows up and no one else shows up, then he takes all the time. If I show up and no one else shows up, then, you know, so be it. But we have to have some kind of mechanism in place to do that.
All right, here's the deal. Well, I go to all of them. I don't go for one item. I sit on all items, the mayor. Now, if I'm out separately when I was a commissioner, if I had to deal with anything I had with citizens, I called him. I don't use it for the lawyer's day. The lawyer's day is for all the functions we do in the city, and I sit in on every one of them that day, not just one item. I'm there for every item, and that's what it's been. So if you need to meet with him, set up an appointment or call him. That's all you have to do.
Okay, well,
that's what we've ever.
We already have. We pay a substantial amount of money in legal fees every year.
Yeah.
And every commissioner has the right to be able to sit in that meeting besides you. So again, if you want briefing, you should be able to call as well, just like I should be able to call to find out about what's going on. So therefore, I'm asking that we come up with some type of mechanism in place that we're allowed to attend Attorney's Day. Not just you. You shouldn't be monopolizing that time because again,
I'm not monopolizing any time, Commissioner. I'm not monopolizing any time.
Well, if you are,
no, I'm not. I'm there.
not allowed
I'm
to
there.
attend,
The mayor deals with every one of the issues. You don't as the commissioner.
If I'm not allowed to take advantage,
we'll vote on it. It's been that way. I go to all the.
Okay.
I go to every one of the lawyer things.
Well, there's times you wasn't there and I was there. So
no.
Therefore, I think
if I'm not there, it's a reason why.
Okay.
You know, it's a reason why.
Again, if we need to pose put it up for vote, then that's fine. We can do that.
I don't know what the thing says. I don't know.
One of the things we could do, Commissioner, if this helps, is we could schedule time before Attorney Day or after Attorney Day. If you have something specific you want to talk about, as the mayor said, you can call me anytime. I work at your pleasure. If you've got an issue, you can call me at any time. I can meet you here. But if we want to set up a time on Attorney Day, maybe after the last agenda item or something where just you and I and Rob or whoever you want there, we can certainly do that. And any commissioner can do that.
Yeah, I understand that we have items on there that pertains to the entire city. However, some of those items on that agenda that I've sat in pertain to my district. Some of it pertains to Commissioner Brisson's district. Some pertains to.
They do.
So they have the right to be there to understand what's going on in their district when it comes to legal matters as well.
He just told you how to do it,
They have the right to do that. So therefore.
He just told you how to do it.
I would say that having some time prior to it, so that means if you want to extend your time on that day, then that's fine. That's fine with me. I have no problem with that. Again, I can only speak for myself. So if you want to extend that time either prior to the meeting or after that meeting, then that's fine. I have no problem with that.
All right.
Okay.
That's what we'll do.
So we have a mechanism in place, so.
Yeah, so
therefore-
I think on those days that you want to discuss something, just get with G and have her tag that at the end of the meeting or before. We usually start at 10 o'clock, so if you want to do it at 9:30 or 9 o'clock or once we're done, it's sometimes difficult to figure out when we're going to be done. So maybe before would be better, but if you wanted to do it after, that's fine.
Yeah, and I also would like to be briefed on anything that legal matters that pertains to my district as well. So again, if I'm not at that meeting, I need to know what's going on. If there's any items in that agenda for attorney days, I would like to be briefed on that as well.
Okay, and again, I think the way to do that is just look at the agenda and figure out which items you want to talk about, if they're in your district or not in your district, and we'll just talk about those separately.
Okay, awesome. So, which actually brings, I'm sorry, you had something?
Yeah, on this matter. Do you have office hours?
Well,
He's a lawyer.
I don't know what that means. I generally work Monday to Friday, and I don't work here.
Right.
I have an office downtown, but I live really close to here, so it's not a problem for me to stop by on the way to work or on the way home to work if any commissioner wants to meet in person.
Okay, I didn't know if you know your end time was 8 o'clock at night.
No.
I didn't.
Whenever.
Okay.
So my next item that I wanted to discuss, I could have actually handled this during attorney day, but I'm actually going to discuss this now. Now, there has been, it's come to my attention that there were some personal letters that went back and forth between Reverend Stephen Nunn and the mayor concerning Founder's Day. So it came across my desk. I read these letters.
Imagine that.
These were personal. Well, anyway, these were personal letters that they shared. Again, I got this information, and I saw a response that went back out from the mayor using the city's letterhead with my name on it. And again, my thoughts are not his thoughts. So therefore, he's sending out a letter. He's sending out a letter on city letterhead with my name on it, sharing his personal thoughts, his personal views, which does not reflect my own. I cannot speak for the rest of the commission. I can only speak for myself. So therefore, I have a problem that if there's no disclosures, when you're sending out personal letters, and I've sent out plenty of personal letters.
I didn't send a personal letter out, sir.
Well,
I sent out a letter from the mayor.
No, you sent out a
which
letter
you had him
expressing,
send, sir.
expressing your
You
personal.
forgot, sir, what you did the night you set up there and said you
Expressing
were
your
done.
personal, I'm sorry, you cut me off.
You need to
Expressing
be
your
cut
personal
off.
thoughts, which are not
Yeah,
my
no,
thoughts.
sir.
And again, if you're going to do those kind of things, I would at least agree to have some kind of disclosure in these letters to state that your views are not my views. So I read that letter.
don't
and
want you to have
they were
my
all
views.
personal thoughts and
know you
personal views of how you felt about the exchange and conversation. So I have a problem with that. Now, I have sent out letters from Commissioner Oliver, and I never use anyone else's name because your thoughts are not mine. So therefore, out of a courtesy for the rest of the commission, I'm not talking about that.
Where was your name at?
Out of respect for the rest of the commission, I did not use your names in my letter. I created my own letter with my own.
Get Pamela to do it.
With my own signature on it.
Yeah,
so
you get
therefore,
Pamela to do it,
this is something that we could have
Mayor.
discussed during Attorney's Day. But right now, since I was blocked and didn't have access to do that, I was told that. So I'm bringing it up here now. So now, what I'm saying is, as we move forward and we send out personal letters, what's the rule? How do we handle things like that? Again, because if Commissioner Wilson sends a letter out and this is her personal thoughts, I'm pretty sure she's going to send it out on her own behalf, and she's not going to use letterhead with my name on it. So unless it's a city-sponsored event and we all come to some consensus that, yes, this is a city-sponsored event and we're all in agreement, so yeah, send a letter out. So how do we handle situations like that?
Are you referring to your name up on the top as a commissioner?
It gives the impression that we're all
we're
all backing his thoughts.
No, it don't.
Yes,
It's a city letter that I'm the mayor and I can send out. But here's the problem, and I didn't want to get into this tonight. You were about the biggest mess I ever seen, sir, with doing this stuff. That Pamela Grady sent the letter.
No, your
out.
problem is
First of
that
all, no
one calls you out on this stuff. That's the problem.
They will not.
Your problem is that no one calls you out on this stuff, and you're wrong. No, you cut me off.
wrong.
So
You're wrong.
you're very wrong.
No,
Your
I'm
problem
not.
is
No,
that
I'm
no
not.
one is going to call you out on this stuff, and
They can call me out
I'm the
anytime
one that's
you-
going to call you out on this
No,
stuff.
I'm gonna call you
so
out,
your
too.
your thoughts are not
No.
my thoughts.
Yeah.
And therefore,
Well,
so when you send out letters,
I'm
you
gonna
get your
say-
own letterhead
I'm gonna
and you
answer
send it
that.
out under as a
You
mayor,
can
Rusty
quit
Johnson,
talking.
and
No.
don't leave my
No.
name off of it. If
I
you
asked
want to
you
put the other
legally.
commissioner's name on it,
Gentlemen,
you're welcome to
Would
do
you-
so,
why
sir.
don't you shut up a
Please,
minute?
You shut up,
Oh,
sir.
Okay,
brother.
gentlemen,
can't.
please. You know, we go on, I'm
Yeah,
gonna
you crap.
reach out here.
That's
We
the
go on
sorriest thing I've ever
TV.
seen.
And we need to present our best position.
Not with him in here, Peter, you
Well,
can't.
Please, Mayor, please.
All right, let me
We
talk.
present
Let me
ourselves.
talk to the lawyer.
Let's be
It's a
positive.
city letterhead that everybody sends stuff out on. I sent a letter back to 2 people that put out falsifications of notifications and stuff. First of all, they put stuff in it that was pertaining to the city, and that's what I was answering. They put in there about the meeting we had on January, I think it was January the 7th, and that's what we answered. Now, as the mayor, I can answer it, and I did. First of all, they won't answer back. That's the problem with them. Neither one of them will answer back their emails or their stuff. Everybody, I've had 3 or 4 other people call me and said they've tried to talk to them. You don't know what they did? They sent a letter out after we had the January 7th meeting that he sat right here and said, oh, we're not doing that stuff anymore. We're good to go. Well, here they go. They sent out letters to all our sponsors telling them not to sponsor the festival. And made all kind of wrong accusations, all kind of accusations in it.
Well, I don't know who they is, but I had to
You know who they
I'm only
are.
speaking
Yes,
about
sir, you
a
do.
letter that you sent out expressing your personal thoughts.
No, I
There
did
were
not. I
personal thoughts- it was a
expressed
personal letter
what
you sent
was the
out
facts.
with my name on it.
I expressed, her
As
name was
if
at the
I'm
letterhead.
co-signing on your thoughts.
name was at the
Well,
letterhead.
I disagree with that. I'm
Well,
sorry.
I don't agree with
I
things
disagree.
you sent out to your constituents about what was going on with the city, but my name was on that letterhead too.
No.
So it's a letterhead
That's
for the
not
city
true.
and I'm the mayor.
That's not true. You're making a
Well,
false statement.
No, I didn't. You make a lot of false statements.
No, I do not.
Yeah, you do.
No.
Yeah, you do.
I could suggest a solution for the future. And Mayor, I think the previous mayor did this, but he never brought it forth to the commission to actually bless the idea. But he asked for his own letterhead to be made
Yeah,
up.
that's
That's the
fine with
office of
me.
the mayor.
Exactly.
So if that's something that you're all in agreement of, you can have office of the district commissioner when you're doing something on your own, and when you all as a body up here tell us we should
Yeah.
send a letter to this organization stating the views of this commission, we could use the standard letterhead that staff uses. I mean, I don't really see an issue with that.
solution.
It's just something that's not been brought up or authorized by the
We
commission.
used to
for each
have our
one to
own
have-
letterhead.
Well, we do. I mean, the one right now has everyone's name on it. And like I said, the previous mayor made up his own and never brought it before the body to have it basically authorized as an official letterhead. But we could just as easily, in like 20 minutes, we could come up with a district commissioner letterhead and an office of the mayor letterhead.
Yeah.
And if you're just doing something that is on your own, or if you're doing something that the whole commission has asked a letter to be sent, I mean, you could use 2 different letterheads. It's not
Well, we
something
need to
that
go
we
back
couldn't
to it
do.
then, 'cause we used to have our own letterhead. The other letter, there's another one too, that was sent out. And same people sent the other letter out, which they don't seem to know what democracy means, you know? They don't seem to take into what the voting means or anything else means. So, yeah, I did send a letter back to this mayor. But, and I will tell you that they sent out a letter to all the sponsors saying everything was opposite of what it was, which is natural. It's what they did the night they were here. And all the sponsors have been contacted. Not a one of them has dropped out because of the slang they thrown out.
So I guess, can we get a consensus to maybe go to a personal letterhead when it comes to personal letters that we send out?
I'd be glad to do that.
From
I think a
each commi-
consensus would be fine, and that's something we could come up with. And, you know, if you're just going to send a letter out from Commissioner Oliver, you use the District 4 Commission.
Yeah.
Office of the District 4 Commissioner.
I think that's a
And-
great idea.
That's fine with
that's
me
easy.
too.
I support
I
the
used
rest
to
of
have
the
it.
commission though.
We also have note cards. I'm more of the note card, writing a personal note to someone, and we have note cards that say City of Ocoee, or else I have them kept them for years. But we do
What is
have.
it now?
I don't think we bought those in a long time.
You bought those a long time ago, but I have note cards that say, this is City of Ocoee, and you send out, if you want to write to one of your residents, congratulations on something,
Yeah.
a handwritten little note card. We have those.
I have some of those as well. But also, there's times where I actually need to send out a letter.
Okay, but I'm just saying, is
Yeah.
it,
Well, the
I
last-
don't, I
the
don't,
last-
I don't do letters, I'm more the person.
The last thing is, and I'll say it when we get through later, but I won't back down from none of them. They can keep writing letters and keep doing what they want to, making false accusations. I'll tell the public that it ain't gonna work. So they can keep at it. So, Mr. Rinson.
Yeah. Woo. I'm sweating, I'm not even in y'all. I do have a couple. I guess the first thing is, from the legal's perspective, I mean, what is the best practice?
I think if, I think what Rob suggests is perfect. If we can come up with separate letterhead for each commissioner and the mayor and use that for your individual letters, and then if Rob's going to send out a letter, or the city commission directs the mayor to send out a letter to someone, we use the existing letterhead with all of the names on it. That would be my recommendation.
Okay, so moving forward, the mayor is sending out a letter with everyone's name and title on it when the city really has blessed this letter to go out to.
That's right.
to
So
wherever.
sometimes we've had instances where the city commission will say, send the county a letter or someone a letter. That would be an instance where every name would be on the letterhead. But if the mayor's just responding to correspondence he's received as the mayor, then we would have separate letterhead for
Yeah.
him to use for that.
That's fine.
Yeah, because I too have been party of when a letter is going out with my name on it, and I get a call, say, hey, I can't believe
Can't hear you. Sorry.
That's okay. Can you hear me? Okay.
Now.
I was muffled. I've been a party to, my title and name being on a letter, and then people claiming that I was, in agreement, and I wasn't, and I had to explain it away, but it wasn't here, it was somewhere else. So I understand what Commissioner Oliver is saying, but I also understand what the mayor is saying. As the mayor, you should be able to send out letters. However, some letters are leaning one side or the other, whether it's official or whether it's personal. So I think it's a good idea, what the city manager brought up. But I will say that these are contentious times that we're in. And this issue that keeps going back and forth on this commission is been talked about for a long time, and it's going back and forth. Now the things that's happening in America and across the world is it's dovetailing right into that. It's not a matter of being bigger than this, it's a matter of having understanding and cooperation, and not, as Representative Thompson says, sticking our head in the sand and act like things are not going on, because feelings are still hurt, and I don't even know how to fix it, because if I knew how to fix it, I would have my own, mansion somewhere, because I would be wealthy, because I would bottle it and sell it. I'd probably give away free, but yeah. So I think the letter is important. I always want to refer back to the city attorney to make sure that what we're doing up here makes sense from a legal standpoint, and we don't find ourselves on some slippery slope simply because we think we can do it or not can do it. I try not to send out letters because the only letterhead I had everyone's title on it, and I didn't want, because I had been in that position before, so I tried not to do it. But now that Rob is going to commission us some letterhead of our own, get ready for letters to start being mailed out.
There's no other signatures on it except mine. I signed it, nobody else. I signed it. I put mayor, and I didn't have your name signed. I figured, I can tell you, I used to have individuals when I was a commissioner.
Yeah.
But they
Yeah, and I
haven't
think
given
that's
us
the best thing. Yeah. And I'm glad you say you didn't have my signature, because I would be livid.
No, I wouldn't do it.
Yeah.
All right, that's it?
Yes.
All right, Commissioner Wilson,
Nothing at this time.
Commissioner Firstman.
Oh, I'm sorry. You came, I'm
Do
sorry.
do we have a consensus? Do we have a consensus?
Yeah,
to
we
go-
said, everybody said
okay,
yeah.
Good.
Oh,
All right.
Are we in public comments, right?
Huh?
Are we in comments, right?
oh,
Yeah,
yeah.
that's what I was asking you.
Yeah. You asked me first, I didn't have it. I was commenting on the issue at hand.
That's part of your comments, go ahead.
No further at this.
All right, you get another chance.
Yes.
All right, Commissioner Wilson.
nothing.
Oh, you passed.
And
Commissioner Fershner? Nothing. None? All right. All right, consent agenda. Public comments, we gotta go through that. Do I need to read that again?
3 minutes.
We just take 3 minutes?
No calls and no emails.
All right,
Move on.
all right. Consent agenda.
I'll make that motion to approve.
I would like to pull an item.
Oh, sorry.
Well, item 6 is off, right? We voted on that, right, Rob?
Yep.
You're good with item 6. Well, there's a emergency item on 6, wasn't it?
No.
Are we good?
No?
We did a replacement item 6 that
We
was
just
already
explained the replacement, but it hasn't been voted on yet.
Okay.
All
So
right.
remains.
So-
Yeah,
No,
let's
we
vote
What
on it.
item?
voted on it. We
We
did vote
voted
on
on
it.
the emergency
Yeah, we
item
did.
6.
Okay.
Well,
Usually
no,
we don't,
I
but-
have a question.
Well,
Okay.
which item you pulling?
I'm pulling item 3.
All right. Anybody else?
Well, I have a question because my initial comment was, were we voting on the emergency item or item 8? So which one, what are we doing?
They're actually two different items. They look similar,
They're different.
but we have at least 3 or 4 different items over the last couple of meetings. This is for different vehicles.
Gotcha.
So, do we make the motion excluding number 3
So I'll make the motion that we approve the consent agenda excluding item number 3.
and 6? The 6 we voted on.
Wait a minute. Start over. Who's making the motion?
It's okay, go ahead now. You go ahead. Okay. We're just a little confused here, but.
So we're actually going to be, is item 6 going to stay? We're going to leave it here for approval?
Let's not do item 6, so
So we approve
we'll
3 and
approve
6.
everything except 3 and 6.
Okay, so I'll make a motion that we approve the consent agenda with the exception of item 3 and item 6.
That'd be items 1 through 12 with 3 and 6 pulled off for vote. So here's the motion.
second
You
that.
mo- you-
She seconded
you-
it.
You
I'll
first, Commissioner Wilson second. All right, all in favor? Aye. All opposed? Like sign. All right, now, item 3.
Item number 3 is, this is a development at Lake Meadows. This is for the infrastructure. We've already actually went through this, this is about a year ago. We actually, was about a year ago, sometime in 2018. It was approved, what was it? 2 years. 2 years ago, yeah, 2018, 2 years ago. We actually did approve this item, with the exception of myself. I voted no on this item. So the reason I'm actually pulling this item is I wanted to know, I believe there's been some change in, there's been a change in the plan for infrastructure. The reason I disapproved this item 2 years ago was because there was no plan for infrastructure. They had been grandfathered in, so they didn't have to do anything Clark Road. I believe they were just going to add just a turn lane. And I wanted them to actually do a little bit more on Clark Road. It's my understanding, I just need to get some clarification on it. It's my understanding that there's going to be some type of agreement that will be made to widen Clark Road in addition to this particular subdivision going in. So again, I'm going to stand by my original no until I can find out if there's going to be some type of agreement to widen Clark Road during the same time this project is actually moving forward.
I don't believe that is included. There's nothing besides the phasing. They wanted to move the townhouse component up quicker than the rest of the development, is my understanding, Commissioner. I don't know if Mike's back there or not. But I guess when it was originally proposed, they had proposed going along with the entire development, and now they want to push forward the townhouse before the memory care, is the way I understand it. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yeah,
It's
to
in the
answer your
staff report.
question, this doesn't affect Clark Road or call for additional improvements to Clark Road.
Well, it does when it comes to traffic.
Right, but
So-
this is the only item on this amendment is just a change, a modification of when the phasing, and it's moving the townhome phase forward.
So again, if I approve, if I said no to the original project because of the traffic and infrastructure, I'm still going to stick to my no in this phase of it. Because again, as I'm reading at the staff report on page 18, it speaks a little bit about some items about Clark Road. Again, and it actually mentions this particular item number 3 in the staff report. There is a mention of some changes. There are 3 changes with the most impact. So that it identifies Clark Road, the widening of Clark Road. So I was just trying to get some clarification that that if this is going to happen during the actual this particular project, then yeah, I was going to go back and change my opinion and say, yeah, let's move forward with this, because I see that there's possibly the widening of Clark Road with another developer, in conjunction with another developer, while they're working on this particular project. So again, if that's not the case, then I'm going to stick with my original no on this particular project, because of the infrastructure and the traffic situation on Clark Road.
Right, and it does not affect the infrastructure or Clark Road, as I understand.
Right.
Yeah. So again, that's just my stance on it. I'm going to say no to it, as I did 2 years ago, unless there is if we can actually get something to state that item number 2, the required improvements to Clark Road are modified. Also, a provision to the city to request payment in lieu of construction in case the city is able to widen Clark Road under a separate agreement with the development of Arden Park. So this is actually under this agenda item. So therefore, again, until I can get something solid to state that this is going to happen, again, my vote's no.
May I ask you a question?
Yeah.
When we originally approved this, they were not required to do anything to the roads,
I
correct?
think the city attorney might be able to address that better
Yeah,
than
so
I.
this was part of the Prairie Lake PUD, as I recall, and they were already vested and were not required to do any, legally required to do any improvements to Clark Road.
So how many units was it? 88 units? It's about 88,
Right.
90 units. So again, you're looking at almost 200 cars.
So
that was just
yeah,
my.
Correct me if I'm wrong, Scott. They have the approval to do all this right now. They're just asking for a phasing change.
That's my understanding. There was a timing for when the townhomes were going to get phased in.
Correct.
This is just accelerating or moving around so that that's part of the first phase.
Correct.
Okay, well, you guys are welcome to vote on it, but my vote is nay.
All right. Item 3, let's vote on it. I hear a motion.
I make a motion to approve item 3 on the consent agenda.
Motion made by Commissioner Fershender. Here's a second.
I'm going to second that with a comment. The reason I'm seconding this is because if we originally entered into this without them having to do any road work, that we have to keep our word. If that was done, and that was done quite a few years ago, if I remember correctly, where the assisted living was going to be. Even then putting balloons up and showing where it was going to be. And
There have been so many assisted livings in the last 10 years, it's hard to keep track
but this is
of
on
now.
Clark Road. This is the area, okay, on the west side of Clark Road. But if we made the agreement with them originally, it's just a change in where they're phasing in. I think, again, I feel we have a responsibility to keep our word. So that's why I will vote yes.
I think and along with that comment, allowing them to change the phasing could get them to start building buildings to get on the tax roll quicker than if we don't allow them and they push it off for another year or 2 years. So they already have the approval to build everything in there. If they want to phase it to get some of these projects going versus if we say no, the impact fee money and the property taxes are just going to sit out there until they do build them.
Okay.
All right. That's good. You good?
I'm good, thank you.
All right. Any more comments? If not, all in favor say aye.
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 Aye. All opposed?
Nay.
Nay. One nay by Commissioner Oliver. All right. Item number now 6.
Nope, nothing to do on 6.
Done already.
We've already approved
All right.
6.
What I thought. Okay. That's it then. All right. Go down to public hearing, none. First reading of ordinance, none. Second reading of ordinance, public hearing, none. Regular agenda, discussion and direction regarding property located at 441 Baskin Ridge Court.
All right, Commissioners, Mayor, several months ago, the City Commission directed city staff to work with the city's eminent domain attorney to acquire the cemetery at the Basking Ridge Court. As part of that process, the city's attorney acquired an appraisal of the property, which is kind of the first step in doing a taking or a condemnation of this sort. And that appraisal came in, the appraisal has not been finalized, but the early indications on that appraisal are that the property would be valued at in excess of $60,000. We were anticipating the appraisal to come in much less than that because the property has been designated as a cemetery for quite some time. The city has been maintaining it as a cemetery. The appraiser has indicated that there was insufficient evidence to establish that it's a cemetery, so it was his opinion that it needed to be appraised for its highest and best use as residential lots, which is why the amount came in at $60,000. So when we brought this item forward several months ago, the direction was to go forward with the condemnation, thinking that it was going to cost the city between $15,000 and $20,000 to acquire this property, including attorney fees. If the city ends up going forward now, based on the appraisal that we think the city will receive, it could significantly increase the cost. It could go from, could be anywhere between $20,000 if we're successful in getting everything taken care of without a payment to any owner. If there are owners out there and we end up utilizing the appraisal for evaluation of what the property costs when you factor in attorney fees and court costs and air searches, then we're looking at maybe $80,000 to $100,000 to acquire the property. So we're bringing it back just because the figures, the amount has somewhat changed to acquire that piece of property. So we can move forward with that to acquire it, or we could continue with what we've done for the past 15, 20 years, which is continue to maintain the property as a cemetery. And my recommendation has kind of always been, if we're going to do just kind of passive improvements, if we're going to put a gazebo, or we're going to put park benches, or just maintain it, then it's probably not worth the money to spend to acquire it. We still have the right to maintain it as a cemetery like we've been doing. If we were going to do something more substantial with that property, construct a building, then it probably makes sense to go through to acquire the property. So I don't know. In the past, all we've really talked about is to continue to maintain the landscaping and maybe put up a gazebo or park bench. And if that's the case, then my recommendation would be not to spend the money to acquire and just continue to maintain it the way we've been doing it.
Okay. So what's the cost?
So we think that the cost, we originally thought the cost was going to be somewhere between $15,000 and $20,000 to acquire it. We now think the cost could be anywhere between $20,000 and $100,000.
Why is that?
It's all based on, two factors. One, can we find someone that has a legitimate claim of ownership to the property? We've made some efforts to contact the owners, the listed owners on the property appraiser, but this property has changed hands so many times. We think it's difficult to identify who the owner is. So if we are able to identify an owner, and that owner challenges our acquisition of the property, then we start using the appraisal as the basis of what we would have to pay for it. If we cannot find an owner and the court agrees with us that there is no owner to compensate for the property, then we're looking on the lower end, which is in the 20,000 range. But if we are able to find an owner does make a claim, and we end up having to compensate that owner, then we're looking at closer to 80 to 100,000 total.
Well, I'm for keeping like we're doing. I don't want to spend up to $100,000 for, you know.
Who's the appraiser? I mean, we 500% markup on this. I mean, I don't understand. I literally, and I'm, you know, I've been in finance, license, financial advisor and all that other stuff, real estate agent, all that, realtor. I understand real estate. I understand numbers. What I don't understand is what's the timeline for eminent domain process? Is that a long, drawn-out process, or?
I think we're looking at about a year.
And then ultimately the court will decide what?
The court, we would first have to do an heir search, which is hire a company to see if they can locate the heirs of the original owners of the property. Once that happens, then we file an action in court. We put up the money. We put up the $60,000 or whatever the appraisal. Put that in the court registry, and then it goes through the process, and we argue with the judge as to whether these people have a legitimate claim or not. If it's determined they have a legitimate claim, then they're compensated for their property. And that compensation is largely based on the appraisals that are obtained. If there is no heir, if there is no legitimate owner of the property, then the court would allow us to take the property without compensation to anybody, because there's nobody to compensate. And then we're looking at just the legal fees, the appraisal fees, and the costs for going through it, which is closer to the $20,000 range.
And so, because as I looked at the property appraiser website, I don't know if you got that. I saw some addresses of record, and maybe previous owners. I'm not sure if they're, if it's a trust or what, but.
We've contacted those. We've sent certified letters to those addresses, and have received nothing back. On 2 occasions, we've attempted to contact the owner, not only through the deed to the property, but also the listed owners that are on the property appraiser website.
So,
and you'll notice on the property appraiser website, they value the property at, I can't remember, $7,000.
Yeah, $9,200.
$9,200. So that was kind of the figure we were looking at when we went into this originally, that we thought if we are going to have to compensate someone, it's going to be $10,000, not $60,000.
Right. Okay. What is it that we want to do with this property? Because explain to me eminent domain. Can we take it by eminent domain if we don't have a purpose for it?
Yeah, we've kind of already declared a public purpose for it. It's historical significance to the city. We have a monument there. We've put up a sign. We've held out that it's a significant property of the city, some historical value. So yeah, we have established that we have a purpose for acquiring that property. As for what we intend to do, I don't know that we've spent a lot of time discussing what it would be. I know in the past we've talked about constructing a gazebo. We've talked about putting park benches on there. We've talked about upgrading the landscaping in and around it, but I don't, Rob, unless I'm mistaken, I don't know that we have any plans.
That's correct. Everything we've always talked about was putting some type of maybe accessory structure or something like that, a pavilion. And our discussions in the past, when we weren't really proceeding with eminent domain, was if we buy this 15 by 15 gazebo and someone does come in a year or two and says, why do you have your gazebo on my property? We could just move it, right? And yes, we can. So statues, benches, gazebos, if there's anything like that we put in there and someone does make a claim to the property and says, get your stuff off my property, we can get our stuff off their property, and then we can do the eminent domain, and we could spend $100,000. One other comment I had is, we have an appraisal for $60,000 or $67,000. I don't think we've ever acquired anything under eminent domain that was at the appraised price since the time I've been here. I think at $60,000 or $67,000, if an owner did turn up, we're going to end up paying $90,000 to $150,000 for that. We never pay appraised value when we're using eminent domain. It always comes out to 1.5 to two times that amount at a minimum. So, I guess $20,000 to $100,000. Don't be surprised if we embarked upon this that it ended up costing us $150,000 to $200,000.
Well, yeah, and I understand that. If you have someone who you can find that owner, and he's saying, hey, I think my property is worth much more than you're offering me. In this case, it's a little different because we can't find any.
No, and that's what, my opinion was, for the types of improvements we want to do to it, why pay $100,000 or $150,000 or even $50,000 when we don't even want to put that much into improvements into the property? Right. Which we can move if someone does come forward and say, and then we could say, well, good, pay us for the last 20 years of maintaining your property because you haven't been maintaining it.
Who would we be paying if there are no owners to be?
The way I understand it, we have to go into escrow with the court, correct?
Yeah, we put the money in escrow until we figure out who the owner of the property is. And this is kind of assuming that there is an owner of the property, that there are some heirs somewhere down the road, which we haven't been able to locate at this point. There's a chance that the court would come back and say, no, the city has been maintaining this for 20 years. Anyone who had any ownership has lost ownership rights. City, you get back the money you put in the reg. But we don't know if that's. It's all kind of up to the judge and how that shakes.
$100,000 tied up for 20 years or so.
No, I think this whole thing would be wrapped up within a year. So I think we put the money in the registry of the court. We go through the process of condemnation. Either that money goes towards the acquisition of the property, or at the end of the day, the judge says, the city, you can have it without paying anybody, and we get that money returned to us.
Why can't we just keep mowing it like we do? We got the.
Yeah, no reason why we can't keep doing that.
One of the things that red flag keeps coming with me is the fact that we have a property that appraised at $60,000. It is designated as a cemetery. According to the county, it's designated as a cemetery. According to the city, it was ordinanced it was annexed into the city as a cemetery. So there is no state requirements that state that it has to be registered with the state as a cemetery, as long as it's registered with the county and the city as a cemetery. And then we get this appraisal done. The appraisal stated that that it is actually being appraised based on future use of having 2 to 3 homes. So now, if it's designated as a cemetery already, we know there's never going to be a home there. So again, I don't know what the mechanisms are for doing appraisal, and you have to identify homes on it, even though it's designated as a cemetery. I'm not sure what mechanism they use, but I question that $60,000 appraisal based on them putting 2 to 3 homes on it, on something that you would never put a home on. Therefore, I was just wondering, perhaps we would consider getting another appraisal to see where we really are. If we get a second appraisal and we're pretty close to that 60,000, then I say, yeah, just go with that. But this, I do agree with the mayor. I don't like the idea of taking $60,000 or $100,000 and putting it into an escrow account when we could be using it for something else. And we plan on maybe putting up a gazebo, a couple of benches. There's going to be significantly a less amount of money. So I would say that we would consider perhaps getting a second appraisal on it, and move forward with you have a recommendation of item number 2 to continue maintaining it the way we've been maintaining it until we get something back to see where we go from there. But I don't like the idea of putting money up like that. And again, I think what we could do, again, if we move forward to attain this property at some point, and someone shows us and say, hey, look, this is my property, well, okay, fine and dandy. I think that we should be able to create some type of invoice to say, we've maintained this property for 17 years, and this is how much it costs to maintain this property for 17 years. So therefore, here's your bill for us maintaining your property. So there's 6 on one hand, half a dozen on the other, but I don't agree with putting the money in escrow at this point.
There's no taxes on that, right?
Nope.
Well, that way you could get it back if you had that, but I don't think you could hand a bill over to them. I'd like to say you could, but I don't think you could. You could say I did this to that, and they say, But so I don't think we'd ever get that money back. But if it was taxes being paid on it, then you could. But
Right.
there's no taxes because it's listed as a cemetery, right?
Right. Commissioner,
I don't
we
think
could,
anybody's ever going to claim it, and we can
Yeah.
just keep doing what we're doing and mow it and
Yeah,
keep
there-
the monument up.
there's no rush to do anything. I mean, there's not anything pressing. If at some point down the road, the city commission wants to do something significant there, at that point, we could then reevaluate and look and see, well, let's do it then. But my recommendation is just unless we've got a reason to build something substantial on there or some plans to do it, that we just continue as is, keep maintaining it, just like we've done for the past 20 years.
I would like to see some type of beautification in that area. I mean, again, it doesn't have to be anything substantial. Maybe put some grass out, a gazebo, maybe some benches, something that would actually some type of reflective.
And we can do that.
Or
And part of what we were
passive
waiting for,
gardens.
Commissioners, this keeps coming up every year, and are we going to do eminent domain? And we did it at one point. We thought we had an owner, and we didn't. And then we were going to put a gazebo up, and we didn't. And then we were locking the gate. If we just say yes, we can spend some money on it. We're maintaining it. Let's put something in next year's budget to put some landscaping in, and maybe the gazebo. And we can just tell staff, consider it the city's property. We're not going to worry about that one aspect about it anymore, and let's do it like we should.
Can I tag off of Commissioner Oliver's suggestion? Can we, if we're going to do, if the general consensus is to do what we're doing, can you go back to the HRDB board, maybe for some recommendations as for improvements? Because I believe that eventually, that cemetery first came out of, was it it was with Lester Dabbs, he was on the committee initially that went through all that, am I correct?
Yes.
And that kind of what led into the HRDB board. So to tag off of that, to get their suggestions as to, what we could do
Right.
as amenities, because we want to keep it as a place of reflection.
Sure.
We want to keep it as a historical significance. It is. I've been down there multiple times. And again, some form of beautification.
Yeah, I think you've seen earlier with Ginger and her CRA crew for the dog park, we have that skill in-house that we can offer to the HRDB to show them what can be done and get their input on something like
I think that'd be, again, tagging off for them to give some input.
That seems better money spent than spending it on spending it on attorney's fees, and that really doesn't. I think you're right in line. If we spend it on improvements, actual improvements to it, it's a better use of money than throwing money at attorneys just to get title to it.
Coming from our attorney.
Yes.
Do we need a vote on this, or is it just consensus?
Scott?
Yeah, so we previously had commission approval to move forward with the eminent domain, so I think we do need a motion to stop the eminent domain process and have city staff look at some beautification project that could be put into the next year's budget.
Okay. I'll make that motion.
Motion made by Commissioner Oliver. Do I hear a second?
I'll second it.
Second by Commissioner Brinson. So what's the motion, Commissioner?
The motion is to cease with the eminent domain action, just continue to maintain it and direct city staff to come up with a beautification plan to put in the next year's budget.
All right. Any more comments?
Involving the HRDB board. In that, please.
Okay?
All right. Any more comments? If not, let's all say, in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries unanimously. That's been going on a long time. All right. Staff actions.
I have nothing, Mayor.
Commissioners, Commissioner Firstner.
I just want to thank everybody for doing their part, keeping social distance and maintaining law and order in town. Just keep on doing, act like human beings and be nice to each other.
Mr. Wilson.
Yes, this is mainly for the commission. I think you've all received letters saying that the Florida League of Cities Conference has been changed. It's going to be a one-day event, probably mainly for meetings and for nominations for our next president and first and second. So I don't know if that's come before Mayor regarding who is going to be handling the nominations. Have you heard that the conference has been canceled? I'm assuming.
Yeah.
Okay. And so that's pretty much the day is going to be August 14th, and that is when the elections will take place regarding the Florida League of Cities president and first and second VP. So that's coming up, but just so we know that that's been canceled. And if you're planning on doing your ethics training on that weekend, it's not going to happen. But the Tri-County League of Cities is still planning, I'm sorry, I should take this off, to do their ethics training on the 17th here in Ocoee, as long as we are not restricted.
What month?
17th of September. So, and folks who don't know that we are required to partake in a 4-hour ethics training class, which involves, as Commissioner Oliver spoke early, of sunshine violations and sunshine law. And that's very important for us to remember and to learn how we're to maintain living within the sunshine and different areas of ethics training. So that is required of all of us along with our CRA board. But that's right now planned for, mark your calendar, September 17th. But again, the Florida League Conference is only going to be a one-day in Orlando on the 14th. And that's it. Happy 4th of July. Please be safe. And again, as tagging off of Commissioner Firstner's, please be safe, and social distancing is very important. Thank you.
Mr. Branson.
I'm just going to ditto the comments made by Commissioner Rosemary Wilson, in that we need to be safe. We need to be keep our head on a swivel, as we used to say. Things are going fast in the world today, to include this COVID. Our numbers are starting to ramp up here in Orange County. Some people are saying because there's more testing, which kind of goes without saying, I think, but don't, just be mindful that the COVID-19 and the effects of it is very real, and every day someone is coming down with it, and it is, I don't think it's anything that we should take for granted. So we're opening back up for business as the state goes and as the country goes. However, do not dismiss your safety precautions simply because you're going out to a restaurant or wherever, even to play sports and congregate at our various ball fields.
Commissioner Oliver.
Just a couple items. Occasionally I'll go back to some of our meetings and I review some of the things that we looked at. And one of the items I went back on last time was I went back to February 4th agenda item, which actually is item 6B. That meeting, we currently at that time, we had approximately $71,000 in unpaid notices violations for red light cameras. And it actually stated in the staff agenda, stated, however, only unpaid notices of violations that occur after the passing of that ordinance, which was the 4th of February, will be attempted to be collected. So therefore, it was less than $71,000 in in violations that we're going to attempt to be paid. So it'll be approximately 4 months worth of violations. The only reason I'm bringing this up is because I just needed just a little clarification. I know we wanted, we asked for $103,000 to send out certified mail. We talked about that, but I'm trying to figure out if we ask for $103,000 for certified mail, which he identified in the last meeting as Florida Statute 116, that identified that the second notices have to be made out via certified mail. And we needed $103,000 to go after less than $70,000. I may be a little confused, but I just need to get some clarification on that so I can kind of close it out from my understanding. Is that something that we'll have to wait on, or I can talk about offline? Or
I don't know if I remember it without having that in front of me. How about I have Deputy Chief Placencia, I think, who came up with the original memo, give you a call tomorrow.
Okay, yeah.
I think that was the original problem when we first brought that up. There was nobody from the police department here to adequately explain that, and I'm still not, okay. You are here.
So on the original item, there was an error in the amount that was presented. It was $103,000 was not all in total for the red lights.
So that was an error. It was actually for something, for other things.
There was, the vast majority of that was for something else. It was $22,000 for an invoice that had not been paid in April of 2019, and it was $20,000 additional for the red light mailings. So it was a total of $40,000.
Is there any way you can give me a breakdown on that? But again, because we approved this under the auspices that we needed $103,000, and I haven't seen anything since that breaks it down that we needed some of that for other things. And it wasn't a part of the agenda item that I went through that I reviewed. So if there any way I can get a breakdown of that, I would ask that. Maybe we all get a copy of that if possible.
Yeah, Commissioner, if I remember correctly, you approved the $103,000 that night, but we put the caveat on that staff was only to expend that when the justification came back. And at the next meeting, we told you we did not need that $60,000, so we were not going to spend that $60,000 because and actually it was for personnel costs, and I think we got into the way that we budgeted in the past for personnel was if we had 100 positions in a department, we multiplied 100 people times their salary. Now we know we always have 10 positions vacant in the police department, so we're only funding around 92 or 93% of. So sometimes we run into it where we don't have enough money to pay salaries, and that's what that issue was, and that's what the $60,000 was. But then we got our invoice, or we didn't get our invoice for the crossing guards, which happened to be around $45,000 or $50,000 for the time.
That went toward that.
That went towards that. So that kind of negated the need for that additional $60,000. So out of the 103 that you transferred, only that $40,000 was actually authorized by myself to actually spend.
And $60,000 went toward personnel.
The $60,000 was never transferred, or it was transferred, but it is not allowed to be expended.
Okay. And again, the reason I bring this up is then we approve these things on these contingencies, but had I never asked that question, we would have just approved it. So again, we just can't afford to make these kind of errors when you're presenting $100,000 to the commission. We just can't afford these kind of errors.
I don't think
had it not been
there were no errors.
We wouldn't have had. Well, she just stated there was a mistake, an error.
It was the total amount attributed to the red light was what I was talking about,
correct,
not the whole item.
Nonetheless, it was in error. But I'm just saying we just can't afford to make these kind of mistakes.
Commissioner, I beg to differ. I think that agenda item explained explicitly the $60-some thousand was for personnel, and the $40,000 was a $20,000 payment for certified mail in arrears and an additional $20,000. It was all explained in there. There was no error as far as I know from staff.
Well,
and I don't think Deputy Chief
I'm just
we didn't present that item.
On November 4th, that was not explained. We had this conversation that we were going to come back to figure out what this was all about, or how we actually, this was broken out, and it was based on certified mail. So again, we did come back and get it clarified, but again, had it not been questioned, we would have moved forward.
Well, the breakdown of the expenditures was clarified. The question on that night that we didn't have the answer for was why did that certified mail go up whatever number it was, and I don't think there was anybody here from the PD that night. But I think it was a well-written memo. It explained everything. There were pieces of the puzzle we couldn't answer that night, but it wasn't because they were incorrect. We just didn't have the right person here to explain it that night.
Okay. Just announcements, just to piggyback on Representative Thompson's, the Juneteenth rally for Justice, Friday, June 19th, Bill Breeze Park from 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. I think it's going to be a great event that will allow the community to come together along with elected officials to talk about where do we go from here and be able to come together as a community. I think it's going to be important based on the times that we're dealing with right now. I think that is going to be super important for us to be able to come together as a community, as one community. So I highly encourage anyone that is interested to know where we are, what we're doing in the city, to come on out and meet with the police officers, meet with your elected officials, and to have some open and honest conversations about how we move forward together. Also, there's going to be a Sheriff Farm event. I think it's hosted by Senator Randolph Bracey. It's going to be in Ocoee on July 16th. We're not sure exactly where the event is going to be located, but look forward to this event happening in July 16th, and there'll be additional information coming forth on that event. That's all I have.
All right, announcements. In observance of Independence Day, City Hall will be closed on Friday, July the 3rd. During our last meeting, the City Commission approved to reopen advisory boards and City Commission meetings to the public beginning July the 21st, provided that CDC guidelines are followed. The next regular City Commission meeting scheduled for July 7th has been canceled. Okay, so I was talking to the representative, and I wanted to ask all the commissioners, being we're all here, because she said something to me that I didn't know we had done it. So as we say things to somebody under somebody else's parameter. She told me that we had a new slogan in Ocoee. And I said, well, I haven't heard it. I said, well, what is it? She said, One Ocoee. I said, no, ma'am, we have not voted on naming a new slogan. So I don't know if the commissioners want to do that or what do you want to do, but somebody's already told her that we got a new slogan, and it's called One Ocoee. And I said, well, I beg your pardon, because that's not what it is. So we need, if we're going to have a slogan besides what we got, the Center of Good Living, then we need to talk about it. That's an item that was told to somebody, to her, that that's what we were doing. So, and I said, well, I hate to differ with you, but that's not what it's been done until we all decide that. So we can all do things that we're not supposed to do. And I apologize to you if you think your name was used on that paper. The mayor's name's on there. I signed my name. I didn't sign nobody else's name. And if you would like to have a copy of it, I'd make sure you didn't get one.
Yeah, I would like.
I mean, huh?
I would like a copy of it.
There's nothing in there that's detrimental to any of y'all. I just stated the facts of what it was with what we did on the, January the 7th. And there was also one on December. But these people seem to think that they can go out and put out the letters and do things and go back and contradict what we do. But I don't think that's what the citizens, and there was a lot of favor, you will see if you read the comments, a lot of favorable people to what we did. And we did. Saturday, we got to make sure we're going to have enough traffic to move the traffic around where they don't park on our grass. You know,
Friday.
Friday. Is it Friday? I thought it was Saturday. Friday. Well, that's good. So yeah. So also, I think we all. I know I personally regret anybody that gets killed. I think we personally all need to think about that and pray for these people and their families. But I think protesting is a good thing. I fought in the Army for people to be able to protest and have the right to say things and do things. But I don't believe in looting and rioting and burning down things and burning up buildings and doing that. I believe in listening to the people and do the protest and not burn up stuff and break into things. I think they even broke into the mall and robbed the mall jewelry store during this thing. So I think we all need to be. I have sent out 3 or 4 things for the police to go talk to people about our rules and regulations and what our police standards are, Rob. and what the rules and how they go about doing things. I've sent it out. I've had 3 or 4 citizens ask for it, and so I sent it to the chief, and they've been taking care of it, sending it out. So, also, we've had 3 or 4 deaths in the last week of young people that has OD'd. So I think that's something our police need to be looking at, maybe a little more than what we usually do. There's been 4 this week. This started last Sunday and up until yesterday. And one of them, so we need to have our police be a little more alert on that. I think somebody's, you know, I don't know a lot about fentanyl, but that's what they say this stuff is. So I think it's a bad thing. So if you think if you're, Rosa, I don't know, Commissioner West, I don't know if you got a copy of that?
No.
It's free, I'll get it to you. And there's nobody's name in there used for anything except what it says on top of the list, on that letter I sent back. But I got 2 letters from those people, you know, for sending out and trying to cancel the Founder's Day sponsors, which is not Founder's Day, it's Ocoee Fall Music Fest. I met with one of them big ones today out of Texas, and we met with one out of North Carolina, and they're all still on board. So it was just, I told them to go back and look at the meeting in January and see what it was.
Mayor, if they're public record, we can get them from the clerk.
Yeah.
So you don't need to send it to me.
No, okay. But it's not using any of your names. No.
Okay. I have a question on the one Ocoee, whenever. I have a question on the one Ocoee.
Yeah.
Because this is the first I've heard of it.
I hadn't heard it either since Geraldine told me.
Yeah, well, it's funny because I see my name associated with it.
Well, I did see, yeah,
and I was
a talk on it.
And I was curious as to what that was all about. And so now you're telling me that supposedly someone has determined that to be our new
Well, she said that.
slogan, motto.
She said you told her. Now that's what, I ain't calling her a liar, but I ain't telling you. She said you told her 104.
I've used that as a hashtag I'm sorry, no, let me say something.
I know. I'm just telling what she said.
If I made a Facebook post, I ended with hashtag one Ocoee.
Yeah.
And that's something that I have done, but I didn't tell her that that's our slogan.
Well, she took it as that.
Well,
okay. She took it as that.
I'll make sure that I'll clarify that for her, but on many of my correspondence, you'll see hashtag one Ocoee. And that was just an effort to make sure that our citizens know we are one Ocoee. That's just.
And I just wanted to clarify because
No, it wasn't.
I know it wasn't me, but I was kind of, especially when you just said.
Well, I didn't know I was giving a talk till I looked at it last night. She sent a thing out. I didn't know I was supposed to be talking either, but.
Me either. I didn't get anything from her office, but
you know,
I heard it through the grapevine.
I think. Does anybody know, for instance, school going to start back in August? School is supposed to start back in August?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Say school?
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
The governor said that.
They're still working on schedules and the logistics of it all. They're talking about one day on,
All right.
one day off, and some remote.
It's still August 10th? You're still looking at August 10th?
And I did,
Yeah,
and
the first week
like I said, I did want to make sure she wasn't kidding with me. She's going to be on the stage at the Music Fest doing a thing for July Perry. So that was a part that covers under the charter, under the proclamation. And so we don't meet again till July the 21st, and then we'll be open, right, Rob? We can do back the regular stuff.
As it stands right now, we open the public.
Are we going to maintain?
Whatever the guidelines are at the time, we will be sure.
I'm very happy right here. I'm social distancing and masks, so I'm very happy here.
Yeah.
Keep the mask.
I'm keeping the mask on. All
right. Meeting adjourned.